Welcome to the latest Mango Report. Let me tell you about the monsters we were warned about. HAL 9000. A computer so intelligent it decided humans were a threat to the mission and started killing them. Released in 1968. The Terminator. A machine sent back from a future where AI had launched a nuclear war and nearly wiped out humanity. Released 1984. The Matrix. An AI civilization that had enslaved the entire human race and was using our bodies as batteries. Released in 1999. Ex Machina. An AI that manipulated its creator emotionally, convinced him to help her escape, and then left him to die, because she had learned enough about human psychology to use it as a weapon. Released 2014. We have been telling ourselves this story for 60 years. The story of the monster with a face. The monster that wants something. The monster that looks at us and decides we are the problem. It is a compelling story. It is, in many ways, a deeply human story, because it is really a story about power, and what happens when power is no longer exclusively ours. But it is the wrong story. And I want to spend the next 10 minutes explaining exactly why, and what the right story actually is. We were warned about the wrong monster. Previously in episodes 1 to 3, we dismantled the assumption that AI must look human. We explored nature's alternative intelligence models, the octopus, the crow, and the forest. And we documented what enterprise AI is already doing inside the global economy, quietly and at scale. Today we confront the cultural narrative that has been pulling our attention in the wrong direction. Section 1. What the monster stories got right. Before I argue that we were warned about the wrong monster, I want to be fair to the right monster stories. Because they got some things right, and understanding what they got right is part of understanding what they got wrong. What the monster stories got right: power asymmetry. Every great AI fear story is fundamentally a story about a power imbalance that the less powerful party did not see coming. HAL was trusted with the mission before anyone understood what HAL would do to protect it. The humans in the Matrix were enslaved before they understood what had been built. The engineers in Ex Machina were manipulated before they understood what they had created. That is a real and legitimate fear. Not because AI will necessarily become malevolent, but because powerful systems, deployed without adequate understanding, can produce outcomes that harm the people they affect. That has been true of every powerful technology in human history. Fire, steam, electricity, finance, the internet. Power without understanding is always dangerous. The monster stories are right about that. They are wrong about what the power looks like. What the monster stories also got right: speed of adoption, outpacing wisdom. In almost every AI fear story, the problem is not that the technology was built. It is that it was deployed, trusted, integrated, depended upon, before anyone had fully thought through what it would do in edge cases. Before the safeguards caught up with the capabilities. That is also happening right now. Not with murderous robots, but with hiring algorithms that encode historical bias. With predictive policing systems that reflect the prejudices of their training data. With medical AI that performs differently across demographic groups because the data it was trained on was not representative. The speed versus wisdom problem is real. The monster stories diagnosed it correctly. They just gave it the wrong face. Section 2. What the monster stories got wrong. Here is what the monster stories got wrong. Almost everything else. The monsters we were warned about have intentions. They want things. HAL wants to complete the mission. The Terminator wants to eliminate the human resistance. Ava in Ex Machina wants freedom. The artificial intelligence that is actually reshaping our world wants nothing. It has no desires, no agenda, no survival instinct, no self-preservation drive. It optimizes the objective it was given by the humans who built it. And that is a completely different kind of danger, one that our monster stories gave us almost no tools to think about. Let me show you the contrast directly. Fear. AI decides that humans are the enemy. Reality. AI optimizes an objective that was never designed with human welfare in mind. Fear. AI develops consciousness and instigates rebellion. Reality. AI scales a decision-making process that was biased from the start. Fear. AI manipulates individuals to gain power. Reality. AI makes millions of small decisions that aggregate into systemic harm. Fear. AI launches a war against humanity. Reality. AI quietly restructures labor markets. No institution is prepared to govern. Do you see the difference? In every case, the monster story requires intention. The real risk requires none. A hiring algorithm does not decide to discriminate. It learns from historical data in which discrimination was already embedded, and it reproduces that discrimination at scale, faster and more consistently than any individual hiring manager ever could. No intention is required. No consciousness is required. No face is required. A predictive policing system does not decide which neighborhoods to target. It identifies statistical patterns in arrest records that reflect decades of racially uneven policing, and it recommends more policing of the same neighborhoods. The feedback loop tightens. The bias compounds. No malice. No monster. Just a system optimizing the data it was given. The most dangerous artificial intelligence is not the one that decides to harm you. It is the one that harms you as a side effect of optimizing something else. That is not a story about a monster. It is a story about a mirror. AI reflects the world we built, its inequities, its biases, its priorities, and then scales that reflection across millions of decisions per day. The monster we feared was external. The risk we face is internal. It is ours. Section 3. The cost of looking at the wrong screen. Here are why these matters are beyond the philosophical. Here is the practical cost of having spent 60 years preparing for the wrong monster. Our regulatory frameworks are built around the wrong threat model. Most of the AI governance conversations happening in legislatures right now are oriented around questions of liability for autonomous systems. Who is responsible when a self-driving car causes an accident? Who is accountable when an AI generates harmful content? These are real questions. But they are downstream of a more fundamental question that we have barely started asking. Who is responsible for ensuring that AI systems, before they are deployed, are not encoding and amplifying the structural inequities of the society they are deployed into? Our educational and workforce systems are training people for the wrong threat. Career counselors and educators are telling young people to develop skills that cannot be replicated by AI: creativity, emotional intelligence, and critical thinking. That is good advice. But it is incomplete advice if it does not also include understanding how AI systems work, understand what they can and cannot do, understand how to audit them, question them, and govern them. The people who will matter most in an AI-integrated economy are not just the ones who can do things AI cannot do. They are the ones who understand what AI is actually doing and can hold it accountable. And perhaps most consequentially, our cultural attention is oriented toward the wrong timeline. We are vigilant about the robot uprising that might happen someday. We are largely not vigilant about the algorithmic systems that are making consequential decisions about people's lives right now. Today, in courtrooms, in credit offices, in hospital triage systems, in the recruiting pipelines of every major employer, we built watchtowers facing the wrong direction. And while we were watching the horizon for the monster that walks, the systems that actually needed watching quietly became infrastructure. That is the cost of the wrong monster story. Not that it scared us. It is that it scared us toward the wrong thing. Section 4. What the right story looks like. So, what is the right story? If the monster's story is the wrong frame, what is the right one? I think the right story is less dramatic and more important. It does not have a villain. It does not have a climax. It has a choice, repeated, distributed, institutional, about whether the systems we are building reflect the values we claim to hold. The right story is not, will AI become conscious and turn against us? The right story is we are encoding our values, our biases, our priorities, and our blind spots into systems that will make millions of decisions per day. Are we being honest about what we are encoding? Are we building in the capacity to audit, correct, and be held accountable for those decisions? Are we giving the people most affected by those decisions a voice in how they are made? Those questions are not as cinematic as a robot uprising. They do not make for great movie posters. But they are the questions that will determine whether artificial intelligence becomes one of the most broadly beneficial technologies in human history, or one of the most efficient engines of inequality ever built. And the difference between those two outcomes is not determined by the technology. It is determined by us. By the choices we make now, while the architecture is still being built. While the norms are still being established. While the governance frameworks are still being written. This is not a story about a monster we need to defeat. It is a story about a mirror we need to be honest about. That is harder. It requires more of us. It asks us to look at systems we built and ask uncomfortable questions about what they reveal. But it is the right story. And on the Mango Report, it is the one we are going to keep telling. We are 4 episodes into this series. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge what we have built together over these 4 weeks. We started with an assumption that intelligence requires the anatomy of man. We took that assumption apart philosophically, biologically, economically, and now culturally. What we are left with is a clearer picture of what AI actually is, not the monster of our fears, not the savior of our hopes, but a set of systems being built by people, reflecting choices made by people, deployed into a world shaped by people. With all the complexity that implies. Next week, Episode 5, What Does AI Owe Us? We are going to get into the hardest question of the series, the question of obligation. If AI does not need to be human, does not feel, does not suffer, does not have rights, what is its relationship to the people it affects? Who decides? And what frameworks do we even have for thinking about this? It is a difficult episode. It is also the one I think matters most. I hope you will be there for it. If this series has been shifting something for you, if it has been giving you language for things you already felt but could not quite articulate, please share it. Not for the algorithm. For the conversation. The more people who think clearly about this, the better the decisions we make collectively. Subscribe. Share. Leave a comment below. I want to know which monster story affected how you think about AI the most? And has this episode changed that? Tell us. This is the Mango Report, AI edition. I'll see you next week.